we all together now? Okay, have a chair. Let's get going. Yeah, I was speaking with Pastor Gutierrez, and we were talking about his new building. And I told him, I said, Ron, you're amazing. I said, just a few years ago, you were living in a hole in the side of a bridge, and now you're building a $4.5 million building.
Amen.
Because that's what God can do.
Amen.
That's what God can do. And he's talking about not taking the past and looking at that and wanting to quit.
Yes.
Jonathan talked about failure. All these messages are geared, and then we go back to Pastor Mitchell, and Pastor Mitchell's talking about what's coming our way prophetically.
Amen.
And so I was pondering this. I was going to preach a different sermon, but I switched to this. Because during these times, especially times of failure, times of setback, times when things don't tend to go your way, they really don't want to go to nursery, do they? And we have these mindsets. But one thing we don't think about, and that's our mortality.
Yeah.
Amen.
We don't think about the issue that our time here is limited.
Amen.
Think about it. Pastor Mitchell's talking about in May something major is going to transpire. And we were pondering this, and I'm thinking through as he's preaching his sermon, and I'm reading the text, and I'm not making the connection that he is to this date, and I'm thinking, God's spoken something there. God's given him some clarity that we don't have access to at this point. And I'm thinking we're limited. Even last night I said, we don't have a lot of time, folks.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't consider how fragile life is, how fragile our time here is. We all think we're going to live forever. Guess what? You're not in this life.
Nope.
There is another life coming where that will transpire, but not right now. And so the question has to be asked, because we want to encourage you to do something for God. We want to encourage you to pioneer and to go out and risk for God.
Yeah.
Pastor Roman wisely states, they don't see the backstory.
Yes.
You don't see the backstory. And he's complimenting our building. Thank God it came out okay. Of course, he was bugging me to do the changes, but that's another story. This looks terrible. You need to change this. I'm an old school guy. The first two guys preached off iPads. I got notes. That doesn't turn off. And so.
Yes,
But the backstory is different. The backstory is, my church knows, but you don't know. We lived in the last building 3.5 years. Lived in the church.
Yes, yes.
In the classrooms.
Yep.
Amen.
Yes.
Come on.
Got to be done.
Yep.
We didn't have no money. I went full time making $600 a month. With a $200 car payment. My wife learned how to cook the best Mexican rice and beans you have ever tasted.
Yeah. Woo.
Yeah.
That's the backstory.
Yes.
When we have folks here, you're considering, why am I doing this? What's happening? And you don't consider that life is fragile and it may not last.
Yep.
What would you do? Because this is the question you got to ask this morning. If today was the last day of your life, what would you do? What would you have done different? How would you act this morning? Because you have to ask that. I think we all know the answer, but we don't consider the question. Luke chapter 12, if you want to read along. Someone wrote this. They said, death is a blessed and glorious event for the true believer in Jesus Christ, the most wonderful experience that can ever come to a child of God. The Apostle Paul says to die is gain. He says how differently most of us look on death. We think it is some horrible monster seeking to separate us forever from those we love. Actually, for those who are in the Lord, death is a gateway to life, a stepping stone. We know that part. To the unbeliever, it's terrible. To those not considering it, it's terrible. Sir Thomas Scott on his deathbed said, until this moment I thought there was neither God nor hell. Now I know and feel that there are both, and I'm doomed. He says, I'm doomed. M.F. Rich, an atheist, cried out, I would rather lie in a stove and broil for 1,000,000 years than go into eternity with eternal horrors that hang over my soul. I've given my immortality for gold, and its weight sinks me into the endless, hopeless, helpless hell. You going to sell out now? Give up your ministry, give up your future, step out because you want to make more money? Folks, money's a tool. It means nothing. I've made a lot and I've made a little. And when you make a lot, you just get bigger junk. But it all spends. And so we need to understand this. What would you do if this was your last day? Because now we're considering eternity. We're considering that place we all want to go, but it has to be done with the mindset of your limited time on this planet. And as we enter into the prophetic last days, which we're in, and we're racing towards the conclusion, what about now? We're trying to encourage people to rise up and do something for God, not sit in a chair and make a lot of money so I can give a lot to the church. Whoop, whoop.
Amen.
Whoop, whoop. What about winning souls? What about, because we have this carnal mindset. Luke 12:16-21. Let's read that. He spoke a parable to them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man yielded plentifully. He thought within himself, saying, what shall I do since I have no room to store my crops? So he said, I'll do this. I'll pull down my barns and build greater. And there I'll store all my crops and my goods. And I'll say to my soul, soul, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said, fool, this night your soul will be required of you. Then whose will those things be which you've provided? So is he who lays up treasure for himself and is not rich towards God. The problem is we think of us. As Pastor Gutierrez was preaching and Jonathan was bringing some insights, I was thinking how we think about us too much. What about my life? What about what I need? What about what I could get? You're a pastor here. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't sit there and look holy to me. I know you. We think, well, what about me? I need this. And I'm suffering and I'm giving everything to the ministry. Yeah, okay, and what's your point? Because that's what we're called to do. We're called to invest ourselves in this. But carnality, many times, even for us, can become a ruling force.
Yes.
And we have to be careful here. He says, what shall I do? I have so much. I'm so blessed. I can serve God later. I can do the ministry thing later on. Let me get the house. Let me get the car. Let me get the education, which, by the way, unless you're becoming a doctor or a lawyer or an accountant, you're wasting your money.
Yes. Yes.
Everybody has a degree in business administration.
Yep.
Including me. And so, it does no good. Because everybody else has one, plus they have a major in something else, which you're off the picture before you start. And so we have to understand this, the carnality. In 1 Corinthians 3:3, preaching to the church, says, for you're still carnal, for there's envy, strife, and divisions. Are you not carnal and behaving like mere men? He says, listen, you're so worried about everything around you, you're not focused on the issue, and the issue is the winning of the world for Jesus Christ. This is a pioneer rally. This is for the churches to come in, and the pastors especially to be blessed, but the people to get a little bit of taste of what Bible conference would be.
Yes.
This is just a taste. In our Bible conferences, we have 17 sermons from all the leadership that stir us to do something for Jesus and to pick ourselves up and get going again. But what would you do if today was your last day? Have you ever thought like that? Have you ever thought about your mortality? See, some of you used to be in the gang thing. The death thing was, all my friends are dead anyway, so, Right? I was on the other side. I was telling Rome, I said, yeah, me and you were just alike, except I did it legally. I said, I was able to beat people legally. It was very good. It's true. When they recruited me, they said, we're going to need to do it. I said, you're going to pay me to do that? I said, what a gig this is. But, death at that point meant nothing.
Yes.
I never even wore a bulletproof vest.
Wow.
Didn't care. I'm going in guns blazing. We're going to have fun today. I mean, that was the mindset. But see, once you're saved, it's like you have to realize about time and eternity and how much time you have. And, you can be young here and have less time than me. You got to realize that. Pastor Mitchell's going on 89 and has more energy than Roman and I and Jonathan put together. But we may not have that. Everybody has a different place and a different position, but our default setting is always about us and about what we're doing. We set our own agenda instead of God's agenda because we don't consider this issue. The text shows that in the most circumstances we tend to set our agenda in place over any spiritual consideration. God says, you're a fool. You're not rich towards God. Oh, you have stuff. You've lived a life that you've been blessed in. You've gotten what you've desired. You've pressed in. You've put out energy. You put in time. You put in labor. You've got a return from life. That's okay. But you know what? Who's going to have it tomorrow? Because you don't bring it with you when you go. That doesn't stay. None of that stays. If the rapture happens right now, you can all wrestle over my wall. I don't care. But we don't see it that way. Romans 8, 6, and 7, to be carnally minded is death. But to be spiritually minded is life and peace, because the carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be. Because we're not considering the future. Until we make room for the will of Jesus in our lives that transcends what we want to do right now, we have a limited future in the kingdom. We want men who will give themselves, invest themselves in the issues of eternity and salvation. We want women who will follow them without worrying about what they can have.
Amen.
That's why I tell the single men, I give them a hint all the time, be cautious who you marry.
Amen.
Really careful. Oh, she may look great, but what's in here?
Amen.
What's in there? Because if you marry the wrong one, she's not going to be into sacrificing.
Yes, amen.
She's going to be high maintenance, my friend. That's why I love my wife. I got lucky. I got both count. I got a good-looking wife who would follow me. It's really good. And I'm afraid they're limited. Most of them are already married to pastors. And so we're blessed. We have wives that will go with us anywhere because we're considering our frailty. We're considering the limits of time that God has placed on every man. And we think about, we need to get this done now.
Yes.
We have to do this now. We don't have time to waste. We don't want to set our own agenda. This man has no thought for the future. It's all about today. It's all about what's happening now. Am I successful now? Because if I'm not seeing what I want to see in ministry, I can just go back to work like Peter. I'm going fishing. I'm the master of the seas. Well, master, your net's empty. What are you going to do now? You have nothing. Because that's what happens when we step out. Our view of the future is in error most of the time. We don't see what God's going to do down the road. Folks, I could not have told you what God would do. I wouldn't even imagine what God's done here.
Amen.
When we came into Redlands, and thank God there were pastors before us that did some stuff. We had 28 people besides my family when we got into the first service. Amen. And the second, and the third, and the fourth. 28 folks. They were good folks. They loved God. But God began to help us. And it was interesting because Pastor Mitchell had just asked me to stay in Prescott for 5 years as his assistant. Just a month and a half before conference. I need you to stay 5 years. Give me a commitment. Yeah, not a problem. I'll stay as long as you want. As long as you can put up with me, I'll hang. It's all good. And then conference comes. Have an opportunity for you. I said, we'll go. And he's laughing at me. I knew you'd say that. I knew you'd say that, Cox. He goes, you want to know where you're going? I said, do you think I can do okay there? He goes, I think you can have revival because you'll work.
Amen.
I said, that's good enough for me. We're going. He goes, no, you need to know where you're going. You want to know where you're going? I said, okay, where are we going? He goes, Redlands, California. I said, where's that? That's after my wife just told me I'll go anywhere except California. I'll follow you anywhere, but I'm not going to California. And he says, you want to see the gold sheets? I said, no. No, you need to look at the gold sheets, Rich. You need to look and see what's going on there. Here's the numbers, blah, 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 blah. I'm looking at the stuff, and, okay, what's this for? I said, we don't need that. He goes, you're right, you're not getting it. And so next we're going he was paying some things he didn't need to. But we didn't have any idea what would happen. But we understood something. Time's limited. It would be nice to stay in Prescott, where I could be assistant pastor to Pastor Mitchell, preach anywhere in the world. Be on staff listening to his sermons all the time and being blessed.
Amen.
With him and the assistant that was there preaching and just taking all of this in. I've arrived. But time was limited.
Yes.
We have this bad view of the future. Hebrews 9:27 is it appointed for man once to die and then the judgment. That's it. We have one shot at this. Discouragement, despair, setbacks, failures. That's part of life. Better learn how to deal with that.
Yep.
Better learn how to deal with that. You know, I'm an East Coast guy.
Yep.
Some of you can tell. You know, I don't have a magnetic personality. I have an abrasive one. Just being honest. Because I'm an East Coast guy. It's a business. It's strictly business. Everything's business. Nothing personal. It's a business. Take care of this. Don't worry about it. This is business. And, you know, I'm upfront about all this stuff.
Yes.
And so when these things are coming, God is moving, blessing is coming. It's very humbling to watch that happen. But I don't have a lot of time. And I don't like to waste a lot of time. I'm not, let's get this done yesterday guy.
Right.
And I want to be busy. I want to be producing. I want to see God moving. I want to see things happen. But I also understand the limits. I understand God has to do this. But I know I have an involvement here. I have a place in this. There's limits of time. Cornelius Vanderbilt was probably the richest man in the world at the time. He was a railroad magnate on the East Coast. I visited his mansion there in Rhode Island. It's a beautiful, unbelievable place. It's like 25,000, 30,000 square foot house. His daughter's dollhouse was bigger than my house. I'm not kidding. Wow. They had a whole home built for her with furniture and where she played. It's like, gosh, it's nicer than where I live. Anyway, so he was the largest moneymaker at the time in America, and when he died, he bequeathed the largest inheritance ever known at that time. Here he is, he has everything, he owns everything, he can buy everything, he's got it all together. And on his deathbed, he said, I want you to sing for me an old hymn. He says, sing, come ye sinners poor and needy, because that's who I am.
Wow. Wow.
This guy had everything, he owned it all. He owned all the railroads. He was a multi-billionaire. He says, I don't have anything. But we all want more. The ministry holds us back from what our true potential is. Folks, can we be honest? If you were in any other fellowship, you wouldn't be preaching. Look at you. Who's next in the foyer to talk to? Who's going to let me preach? I mean, are you kidding? Yeah, come here, sit down, I'm preaching. Shut up. Open that Bible, what's wrong with you? Who's going to let us preach? Who's going to let us do these things? And, we need to get back to reality. There's limits. Vanderbilt understood that money, power, status meant little when facing eternity.
Yes, yes.
So why are we, as people of God, always concerned more about that than ministry in the kingdom? Why are we more concerned? Time is short. Pastor mentioned May. Folks, it's April. Have you clicked on that yet? Oh, really? It's April. 6 weeks.
Amen.
What are we going to do for God? Thinking about leaving ministry? Better think again. Thinking about stepping out of your ministry? Better think again. Thinking that somehow you'd be happier if you could make more money and have more stuff? Think again. Wisdom concerning time is needed for everyone here. Ephesians 5:15-17 says, see that you walk circumspectly, not as fools, but as wise, redeeming or buying back the time, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is. What's the will of God? Simple question. I have people, Pastor, what's the will of God? It's right here.
Come on.
The will of God's written. You read it all the time, I hope. It's right here, folks.
Amen.
This is the will of God. What's the heart of Christ? The nations of the earth.
Yes.
Winning souls. And yet here we sit in a pioneer rally. And my desire is to stir you.
Yes.
Is to perhaps pressure you. He's feeling the pressure. He's not. To have perhaps pressure you. I don't mind using pressure. I don't mind saying, you know what, here's what you need to do. Let's get you in this moment and squeeze you, because a diamond can show up from a lump of coal.
Yeah.
You know how diamonds are made? And a piece of coal is pressured and pressured until it turns into a diamond. Sometimes pressure is healthy. Some of the snowflakes are getting some pressure. We need to understand time is, you don't have forever, guys. Ladies, you don't have forever to do something for Jesus. You know, it used to be in the beginning, we were hopeful to launch churches. Hopeful to disciple men and have them rise up and be able to, but we didn't have any money. We were broke as a joke.
Yep.
I'm like, God, you've got to help us with finances so we can launch these men. We began to launch churches, and God began to help us. You know what the problem is now? We have the finances,
Yep.
but no men.
Yes, amen.
Because they're all working for today. Remember what Pastor Gutierrez said? What 20 years down the road, what are they going to say?
Yes.
Now, Pastor Mitchell made an interesting comment. He said, one of the worst things someone can say about you as a Christian when you die is that they made a living. I just preached in India with their harvesters, great scene. I preached a sermon there called Making a Living or Having a Life. Which one are you doing?
Praise God.
You're making a living or having a life? I have a life.
Yes, yes, yes.
I have a life. And this is the best life there is. But you have to make a choice here. You have to change your focus. The moral of this parable is for the listeners to come to the conclusion that spirituality is the need, not more stuff.
Yes, amen.
Not a bigger bank account.
Yes.
Not a larger purse.
Amen, yep.
What kind is that? I have a coach. Oh, really? Well, I have a Louis Vuitton. Well, I got a wallet. Only thing in it is just one bill. That's it. I got nothing else. That's why I said anybody can have it. There's nothing in it. We want more and bigger and better.
Yes.
What about ministry where we can reach one soul?
Come on.
My wife asked me when we were first being launched out to Pioneer up into the Northwest. I mean, honest stuff, you know. She goes to me, she goes, what happens if this doesn't work? Got to be honest. And I looked at her and I said, listen, we're in Prescott, the hardest place in the world to witness because it's been witnessed to every day and every day. For all these years, I said, and we're seeing people saved. Amen. We've seen people saved. We've seen people we've prayed with become pastors. Okay, it works here, it'll work there. I said, listen, if we go out and we see one person come to Jesus, just one, and come to the church and stay, we've done our job.
Yes.
So everything after that's a bonus. Yep. We're in double bonus right now. We're really good. But it didn't start here.
Yes.
And your time is limited. How much time do you have? See, the farmer in our text lives in us. He lives in us. He's in here. You know, I can't stand up here and tell you that I've never thought about going out. I can make money, folks. There's a ton of money to be made. If you want to make money, you can make money. And what good will it do you? I can be a consultant. I have lots of experience in a certain field. And I've been asked to go on extended trips to other countries, to the tune of $100,000 for 9 months. That's after I've been a pastor. When I was making $600 a month, they came in all the time. Those bucks, it was bad. 600, 100,000. Let me get the calculator. But what good will it do?
Yes.
Souls.
Yep.
I remember we were looking for this building. We were in our last building, and to the gills, we were putting them in shoehorns.
Yep.
There's no room. You couldn't breathe. It was horrible. We were living, and we had to move out because we had no space, and we finally got a place. But we were shoehorning them in, and we're trying to get this building. Folks, 9 years.
Amen.
We prayed and prayed and looked and made offers and looked at buildings and shut down. The city hated us.
Yes.
Now, church, out. They carried the building. And they'd see us coming in the front door. Why did you come in? We're not getting anything. I went to Pastor Mitchell at conference and says, the time is short, Pastor. God's got to help us. We're seeing some things, but, perhaps, maybe I'm the problem. I was thinking when Jonathan was preaching. Maybe I'm the problem here. Maybe you need a new guy to come in. Brenda and I have pioneered before. We'll meet again. We'll go overseas. Whatever you want us to do, we'll do it. We're talking at a Bible conference. And this was at the end of the week when they're looking for guys to go overseas. I said, we'll go. Whatever you want us to do, not a problem. Maybe you put a new guy in here, get a new leader in here, get some pizzazz. Maybe I don't have enough pizzazz. I don't know what it is. And he's listening, Pastor Mitchell with his little eye. So 9 years I've been praying. He goes, no. It was 9 years we've been praying. I'm going, this is not going to be good. He says, go back to work. I said, well, there's your difference. Do you know I got home from July conference, and in August, this building came on the market?
Yeah.
Not only that, I had previously offered $4 million for this building, and they laughed at me. When I came back in August, I offered them 2.5, and they took it.
Yes.
But what would have happened if I would have just said, well, you know what, I'm not success, I'm done. I'll just go do something else and I'll forget it. I'll pioneer, but you know, we'll just be happy doing anything. That's okay, but what about the will of God? Time's limited. You know, God knew what He wanted to do here. I didn't know. I had no clue. And please, Pastor, don't tell me you know the vision God has for your city. It's probably not your vision. My vision is to preach to thousands. Well, that's really good. But can you win 5 and hold them? Folks, I'm a realist. We pray with hundreds a month here. We don't have hundreds a month walking in the building. I pray to God it will happen someday. Right now we're struggling to keep one. We're adding one at a time in our congregation.
Yes.
You got to fight that through. But you know what? What if today was your last day? You're going to surrender now? Give up because you're not seeing what you want to see? Be comfortable? Kick back? Retire young? Be a hobby pastor? Pastor Roman and I are on the same page. I like blood. If they would have had UFC cage fighting when I was a young man, I know I would have done it. I'm telling you. I know I'm flopped though, I get it. But that gives me such an advantage in a fight. And so, you got to get in the fight, guys.
Yes.
Time's limited.
Amen. Today
Today may be it. Next week, it may all come down in May. What are we going to do? Stand before God and say, you know, we wanted to make some overtime. Gosh, you know, that car payment was kind of, we had to kick it up, you know. We couldn't be happy with the Civic, man. We need the Accord. The Camry was okay, but, you know, we needed the Avalon. Time's limited, guys. Some of you are sitting here today, and I'm killing you. Because you're thinking, I'll get to it. That's what this guy said.
Yeah.
You know, the guy thinking, I'm going to do something for Jesus, just not today. But what if today's it? Last day, last chance, last hope, maybe right now. Pastor Mitchell powerfully brought down that fact that we are so limited, we don't even think about it. I mean, we're thinking, oh, May 2018, wait a minute, that's next month. Whoa. What will you do? Let's bow our heads and our hearts before the Lord.